Right now, India's entire corporate world is being shaken to its core. And look, this isn't just your usual market ups and downs. This is a fundamental rewiring of the country's strategy, all thanks to some incredible global pressure. And it's all happening as we speak. It really all kicks off with one frankly mind-blowing number: 500%. Just try to imagine a tax that could make your products 5 times more expensive overnight. And this isn't a hypothetical. This is a very, very real threat hanging over the entire Indian economy.
So that leads to the big question, right? What do you do? I mean, when you're faced with what is basically an economic weapon of that size, how do your government and your biggest companies even begin to react? Well, that's exactly what we're going to break down.
Okay, so a 500% threat. Where on earth does a number like that even come from? Well, this wasn't just pulled out of thin air. It's a carefully aimed geopolitical tool with a very specific and very disruptive goal in mind. The source is a piece of U.S. legislation called the Russia Sanctions Bill, and it's aimed with surgical precision right at India's energy strategy. You see, since 2022, India has been a top buyer of discounted Russian oil. For a nation that needs a lot of affordable energy, that's a smart move. But this bill, it's designed to make that strategy financially impossible. And they're not even subtle about the intent. Here's a quote from one of its key sponsors, Senator Lindsey Graham, who made it crystal clear. He said it's all about strong leverage. This is a tool designed to force India to change course, putting New Delhi in an incredibly tough spot. And you might be thinking this is just about oil, but the shockwaves would be felt across India's entire export economy. We're talking about massive sectors like textiles, where production could just grind to a halt, or gems and jewelry, which depend heavily on the U.S. market. For these industries, a 500% tariff isn't just a hurdle, it's basically an extinction-level event that logs them out of their single biggest market. So, with its back against the wall, what's India's first big move? Well, it's a surprising one and a deeply pragmatic one. They didn't turn to a traditional ally. They pivoted towards their biggest regional rival. Now, you have to remember, after a deadly border clash in 2020, India pretty much banned Chinese companies from bidding on major government projects. But now, they're doing a complete 180. Why? Because projects are getting delayed, and they're facing equipment shortages. So this isn't a change of heart. It's a move born from pure economic necessity. Now imagine you're one of those domestic Indian companies that's been operating without that fierce competition for a few years. For you, this news hit like a shockwave. And the financial markets, they reacted instantly and, well, pretty brutally. The proof is right there in the stock prices. Industrial giants like BHL saw their shares absolutely tank by over 10% in a single day. Larsen & Toubro fell over 3%. And the reason is simple: pure investor fear. They are spooked by the idea of having to compete again with those massive state-owned Chinese giants. Okay, so that was the first reaction, looking outward to a rival. The second major reaction we're seeing is almost the complete opposite. Instead of looking out, some of India's biggest players are turning inward, consolidating their power and bringing their capital back home. And this brings us to an absolutely landmark deal. After a partnership of 24 years, India's Bajaj Group and the German insurance giant Allianz are parting ways. And that breakup is kicking off one of the biggest transactions the Indian insurance sector has ever seen. And just get a load of the scale of this thing. We're talking about over 21,000 crore rupees. That's roughly 2.4 billion US dollars. This is so much more than a transaction. It's a massive statement of intent from a homegrown Indian powerhouse. But here's the really crucial part. It's how they did it. The Bajaj Group bought out nearly all of Allianz's remaining stake, boosting their ownership to a whopping 97%. And get this, they funded the whole thing with their own domestic capital. Zero debt, no loans. It's a powerful signal of financial strength and a strategic move to take complete control of their own destiny. All right, the third major reaction comes from a single corporate behemoth, a company that's being forced to re-engineer its entire global supply chain just to navigate these geopolitical minefields. It's fascinating stuff. Let's look at Reliance Industries, which runs the world's largest refining complex. For a while, they were benefiting massively from that discounted Russian crude, but as soon as that 500% tariff threat appeared, they made a drastic call. They halted all Russian oil imports, period. And now, they're already pivoting, looking at buying heavy crude from Venezuela as U.S. sanctions there start to ease up. It's a high-stakes, incredibly agile move to stay ahead of the game. So we've seen all these reactive moves, but what's the long-term plan? What's the strategy for real, lasting resilience? Well, the answer might actually be hiding in a sector that has, for a long time, been overlooked. I mean, think about it. What if, in a world full of trade wars and chaotic supply chains, one of India's most traditional, oldest sectors could actually become its most powerful strategic asset? This quote from the Economic Times just nails the idea perfectly. The thinking is really starting to shift. People are looking at agriculture and food processing not just as a domestic problem to be managed, but as a potential power lifter for the entire Indian economy on the world stage. So, how do you unlock that potential? Well, the plan involves huge investment in the backbone of the industry. We're talking logistics, cold chains, modern warehouses. But just as important, it also means creating predictable, stable export rules. The goal is for the world to see India not just as a producer of food, but as a reliable, long-term partner you can count on. When you zoom out, what we're really witnessing is an incredible high-wire act. India is being forced to balance its energy needs, its strategic partnerships, and its own economic ambitions all at the same time. The question is, can it pull it off? The strategies we've just walked through are the very first moves in a game that is going to define its future. And there you have it. It's pretty wild how a single threat can set off this huge cascade of strategic shifts, forcing an entire economy to come up with a whole new playbook basically in real time. If you found this breakdown of India's new playbook interesting, please go ahead and hit that like button. And of course, subscribe for more deep dives into the big forces that are shaping our world. But now, we really want to hear from you. What do you think is the smartest move for India in this situation? Drop your thoughts on how all this pressure is going to shape its economy down in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching.